I'm trying to make it bigger. There we go. All right. The UCC structure. We are a covenantal church, not a confessional church. Now that's a bunch of theology, but I'm going to explain that. In other churches, I'm going to start with the Roman Catholic Church as the good example. They are creedal or belief-based churches. What I mean by that is there's a creed every member agrees to, or there are a certain set of beliefs they believe to. They all agree when they join, do you believe? In this structure, the highest authorities, the Pope obviously is the highest in the Catholic Church, the Vaticans, etc., the Vatican offices, the cardinals, the bishops, all the way down. At the bottom are the people. This is the structure concerning any belief. The government mixes a little bit, and obviously some clergy are powerful maybe than it moves a little bit, but this is the basic understanding of who's in charge and who's going to tell us what we believe. And if you buck the system, you will pay. This is not just limited to Roman Catholic. This is the structure of the United Methodist Church, and I will defer to my former Methodist colleague on that. But at the top, and again, they're a little bit different. The General Conference is what makes the main decision, but there is a president, right?
Yeah.
But the General Conference is the big thing. That's where the big fights have been. There are other executives. They too have bishops, and the bishops appoint the clergy. Most of the time, that's the way it goes. On the left, there are some churches that are more powerful than the clergy. So some clergy who make a lot of trouble might get kicked out because the church pressures the bishop and says, we're going to get rid of this one. And this can be in an individual church too. The mega churches are very much hierarchical. The senior or founding minister on the top, the executives, key givers, paid staff, lay leaders, the music leaders very high, below them, the people. It doesn't even have to be a big church. In many African American churches, this is very much the hierarchy. The senior pastor, it just goes right down and what the senior pastor goes. So, those are the creedal churches. Who are the covenantal or relationship-based churches? Not that there aren't relationships in the other one, but literally their government is based, everybody's got to sign on. The relation-based churches, the UUs, the Quakers, the Disciples of Christ, and us. We're the relation-based churches. So if you've been in any of those, and the Presbyterians, depending on, but they have a lot of hierarchy too, the Presbyterians, yeah. So what does that mean? Well, okay, number one, what do you notice? This is not an up and down structure. This is a side to side structure. But even with this, the individual person is the highest. I can't tell you what to believe about anything. You have freedom of conscience. That is one of our tenets as a congregational, democratically based thing. Persons are members of a church. A church elects various people, the council, including the moderator and the other officers, and as well calls pastors. This group is here to serve this group. They do not tell them what to do. They tell them what to do. And both ways. That's part of the structure of this. It's not a you got to go through this to go through that. One of the reasons, for example, we call our head of council moderator is because you are not a president, because a president assumes some sort of hierarchy of power. A moderator is a moderator of equals. Everybody on council is equal. Everybody has different tasks. The executive council has to do some of the financial things Do they have more power? No, they are an executive of equals. And you can see over here then who the national office and the Florida conference serve these three as they serve them, and vice versa. They're all connected. Now, one of the reasons we know it's not hierarchical is this, that there are connections. A person can come right to me. They don't have to go through some sort of church council. They can come to me and argue about, what I said in a sermon or whatever. That's a direct line. Somebody, the moderator, can call the national office and say, look, we're having trouble with this kind of thing. Have you got some ideas for us? Or the treasurer can call the Florida conference and say, we want to do an endowment. How do we do that? You don't have to go through anybody to do it. And I don't know what I just drew, but something else. In fact, a person, and people in this church have done this, can call the national office of the United Church of Christ without going through anybody else. And they will answer. There's no middle here. This is a group of equals trying the best we can to do the work of Jesus. Now, in some ways, this is the most inefficient and bedeviling form of structure in the world because everybody's equal. And so there is opportunity for dissension, division, and disagreement everywhere. Now, one of the things you notice about this chart is the CRC is not on it. And I'll tell you why. The CRC is the mechanic, is the lubrication, is the repairer of this system. They are the ones who are going to look at this system and say, okay, what's going wrong? Is there a problem? Somebody's mad at the church for some reason. The CRCs, and also the CRC is constantly listening, hearing. People tell them about their problems. People tell them about their issues. So they're flitting about. If there's what am I doing? Who knows what I'm doing here? If there's a little graphic though, Brian. Thank you. You like the car? No, I don't want to do any of that. Stop it. Hold on one second. There we go. If there's a problem between the council and the financial secretary, if there's somebody worried about the financial secretary, then the CRC is going to hear those things. They are the ones that hear those things. They are the committee to which we go with concerns about how things are going. So, and somebody will talk about this later. There was a situation in one church I had where there was a financial secretary who was beginning to make mistakes in reports back for taxes. Well, the CRC and the council began to hear that, and the CRC gathers the information. How many people? Who has heard? What's going on? What can we do about it? That kind of thing. Same way if there's somebody having trouble with the pastor, or, and this is a reminder, if a pastor has some trouble with somebody in the church. This goes both ways. For example, when there is a problem here, the CRC will hear it from several people, will bring it to the pastor. Now they will bring it without names. Why? Because the pastor of this church is charged with loving every member with the same fervor and acceptance. I don't need to know the name of the people who think I'm a crazy dancer. And likewise, a member of this church that really is angry at me has protection of the CRC from being outed to me. Because it's not fair to them. I'm their pastor. I shouldn't know that they have petty, ridiculous things against me. But if there are things that they keep hearing about the sermons, that everybody loves Judy, but 20 people come and say, I can't stand Brian's sermons, the CRC is who hears that and who will confront me about that. They are the lubrication. And the reason they're not in this structure is sometimes they're not. You know, there have been some meetings with them, and part of their job is to help pastors with their professional growth. And blessedly, sometimes there have been months where there's been no issue. And so they're still here, but they're not really visible. The only thing they're working on is that kind of stuff with the pastors. So that's why they are sort of not above, nobody's above the structure, but in one sense they are, because they have to look at what's going on as kind of a whole. You know, they're taking the bird's eye view or the wide lens view, and are available to help us wherever we're having squeak, wherever we're having tension, wherever we're grading, wherever, and they try to bring lubrication. And they'll talk about, sometimes that means just listening to one individual, and sometimes it's much more. Any questions about that from anybody?
Do you have a copy of that presentation?
I'll make one.
That, so because you know, it's interesting to see the different churches and how their structures are.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I knew about the Catholic Church because it was drilled into me, but the others I didn't, you know. And I told you this, I really don't know that much about the United Church of Christ.
Right.
And I want to, because this is where I choose to be.
We drive people crazy who come from confessional churches, because they're used to being able to go to the top person, get buy-in, and then it all just happens. And here, as you know, you come to us and we say, take it to council. The council is the senior pastor. So everything takes much longer and it's much more complicated, but when there's eventually a decision made, it's usually a better decision.